Hi, my name is Jack. I'm an inflatable kayak enthusiast. I've owned about 20 different inflatable kayaks throughout my life. I'm not necessarily an expert, but I'm happy to share some tips with you today on what to look for in a kayak if you want to buy one. The ultimate determination for what kind of kayak you will get will depend on what your budget is and how often you're intending to use it. If you're really not using your kayak all that often, it really kind of doesn't matter how good it is. If you're only going on a lake and maybe not paddling more than a mile, it doesn't really matter if your kayak is not particularly fast. However, if you're intending to kayak all the time, you will probably want to spend more money and get something that will please you every time you use it. An important thing to understand about inflatable kayaks is that they're not as fast as hard-shell kayaks. Generally, hard-shell kayaks are significantly faster, but potentially with some exceptions. However, inflatable kayaks as a group will be also more stable than hard-shell kayaks. So if you're worried about tipping over, most inflatable kayaks might really be a great solution for you. Some of these kayaks, specifically this one, would probably be really hard to tip over even intentionally. The way I like to think about inflatable kayaks is I break them down into three groups. The cheapest group will be something like this. That kayak right there, brand new, will cost about $100. Intex is a company that manufactures most of kayaks like that. They're made of a really thin and cheap material. It's vinyl. You probably might puncture it pretty easily, so I would not take those kayaks out on extended trips. However, the price is pretty amazing. I bought this specific one for $40, which is 37 times less, 1/37th of my most expensive kayak. If you're only intending to paddle once in a while and not for long distances, that is more kayak per dollar than any other kayak that I've seen. They are also pretty easy to dry, and I'll talk about that later. The second category of kayaks, and this is probably the biggest category that you might encounter, is same material kayaks, but they're enclosed in protective fabric, which means that they're so much harder to puncture. And this specific kayak is the one that I've probably kayaked in the most. I've taken this kayak on a multi-day camping trips, and it didn't lose any air, and I was not worried about puncturing it. Then the third category are the kayaks that are fully made out of thicker PVC or Hypalon plastics, or rubbers. These ones are so thick that they don't need to have a protective fabric, and they're really durable. I had one of these kayaks. It was a NRS Pike. It was probably the most durable kayak I've ever owned. I went whitewater kayaking with that, and after rubbing against the rocks, I could barely even see any signs of scratches on that material. It's so durable. And in the same category, but really the future of inflatable kayaks now, is fully drop stitch kayaks. I imagine that this is where we're headed, and going forward we will probably have more and more kayaks like that. So these kayaks have all the advantages of hard-shell kayaks, but they're significantly easier to transport. The way they make them so streamlined and fast is, instead of these round balloons, they figured out the way to put a whole bunch of strings inside those balloons and make them flat. So now your kayak is not as fat, which means that it's not quite as stable, but at the same time it's significantly faster. When it comes to speed, they're about as fast as hard shells. Most common brands for the first group of kayaks would be probably Intex. They have this yellow one, which is Explorer, and they have a green one that you will see a lot. That's probably the cheapest kayak you can get. Brand new, they start at $90 on eBay for a double, for a tandem version. And those are Challenger. Next category will probably, most common brands will be Advanced Elements, Air, those are the most whitewater kayaks will be in this category. They're really durable. They have this very durable exterior shell, but on the inside they have the same type of vinyl balloons. Aquaglide, one of my favorite brands. And then in this category, Aquaglide has a number of boats that will be in this category as well. Sea Eagle. Sea Eagle is a big player, and I really appreciate them being the visionary in the industry and really pushing forward with I think, what is the future of kayaks. Hobie I-11 and maybe some other models of theirs also would be in this category. However, price point wise, they might be a little bit crazy. So when we're looking at the prices of these kayaks, the first group will cost you, you can get on the water for $100 there. These ones are more like $600, $700, $800. Maybe you can buy these used for $300 or so. These ones, however, will be at a premium. They start for single versions, at maybe $800. I have a double version of that kayak, which I paid $1,400 for. So I bought that one used, and between this one and that one, I paid 37 times the amount of money for that kayak that I paid for this one, since I bought this one used for $40. So if money is a big concern, group number one might certainly be your way. And I would say that they are pretty horrible at tracking. They're pretty bad at doing almost everything, and they're annoying. But if you just want to get on the water and you don't have much money, I say go and get one of these. It's better to be on the water and not be super fast than not enjoy the water at all. A lot of people ask me about brands of kayaks, and I would say that most major brands of kayaks are perfectly good, and you can't really go wrong, with one exception in my personal experience. There is one brand that I've seen a couple of really abysmal kayaks from, and that brand is Sevalor. So if you stick with brands like Advanced Elements, Air, Aquaglide, Sea Eagle, I don't think you can go wrong. However, Sevalor seems to suck. One major thing that you probably have not thought about before you owned a kayak is drying. And this is a major thing once you actually own one. So you go in the water, you enjoy the water, and then you want to go home, but you end up with a wet kayak. So with the group number one or group number three, you can pretty easily wipe it off, and it will probably dry within 10 minutes on a sunny day. However, this group number two, which if you remember is the most populous group of kayaks, are a pain to dry because that fabric absorbs a lot of water and it's really difficult to dry it thoroughly. You have to usually take the floor out and ideally let it sit on the sun for an hour or so. So if you're having a picnic afterwards and it's a sunny, beautiful day and you have some daylight, great. But a lot of times you probably don't have a lot of storage space and place to dry a kayak. It can start rotting if you don't dry it well. And for that reason, if you're considering buying one of these kayaks, you may consider just investing a few more $100s and getting one of these kayaks, which will not give you such trouble. If you're thinking between a really cheap kayak or trying to get one of these, well, maybe get a really cheap one. At least they're easier to dry. Some people wonder whether they should buy a tandem one or a single one. Well, this definitely depends on what you're intending to use it for. About tandem kayaks is that if you're going on extended trips, if you have two people in a kayak and one person is paddling, let's say you're going at 3 miles an hour with just one person paddling. Adding a second person to the equation, having two people paddle, will get you going at about 4 miles an hour. So it doesn't double the speed with the doubling of effort. So on longer trips, it actually makes sense for one person to paddle at a time. So I love tandem kayaks also for the fact that they're so much more efficient, and you can really save a lot of energy and enjoy time together. But it can also be a relationship tester. I've heard of couples who almost broke up after they discovered that they're incompatible in paddling together in inflatable kayaks.